Good afternoon. I am Emily Payne, and your webinar this evening or this afternoon is Bring Active Play Indoors, Facilitating Gross Motor Development in the Early Childhood Classroom. I've been doing this webinar for quite a bit. Karen and I were just talking about that. It's been a few years, and when we started, my kids looked more like this age, and now the oldest is actually in college. But I will say that raising these three young boys probably taught me more about the importance of incorporating active play into the home, the school, as much as my education and my experience in schools. So I have been a PT for quite some time. I graduated back in 2000, and most that time has been in school setting, a lot, probably 8 to 10 years now in an early childhood program. You know what? We will have to update that email. Karen, we'll have to update the email to my Gmail. We can do that in the chat. I have switched to a different district, so we'll have to update that for you. I apologize. Just noticing that now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip these polls. I see a lot of people are putting it in the chat for me, and that's great. I saw somebody even teaches gross motor. Sometimes it just gives me a good idea of who I'm speaking with, but I've been noting a bunch of you putting it in the chat already, so thank you. And then most of us will skip the other poll. Most of us are preschool, I hope, since this is the early childhood um, development program. But if you do have those 5 and even 6, 7, I think you'll even get important information from this. So if you're not in preschool, that's fine. This will probably still pertain to whatever you're doing. So I do have 4 major objectives for today. The first one is understanding the importance of movement on the developing brain. A little neuroanatomy here, but it's very applicable. So I won't go into too much science. I know that's not why we're here. I will very briefly review the Illinois Learning and Developmental Standards, but just as they relate to motor. I know we're kind of, as educators, kind of bound to this developmental standards, all 180 some pages of it. So I'll just briefly explain how that is relating to what I'm talking about today. It's important that you do understand what the normal milestones are for this age group. So I'll briefly go over that as well. But most importantly, I want you all to develop a really good toolbox of activities that you can take with you after today. With this weather, we all need to be incorporating movement because our kiddos are having a hard time getting it on their own with the weather. So, movement and learning. There was a time that the scientific community really thought that these were separate entities, but it's now known that all these pathways are interconnected and that the pathways involved in movement are very associated with the pathways involved in learning. So I'm going to go more in depth into that. We all know that studies will show that physical education can make improvements to learning, and it also makes kids more engaged in their environment. They have better performance and attitudes. You just feel better, right? So that's more exercise. But I really want to delve into how these two pathways are interconnected. So I'm going to close this chat here. I'll bring it up later. Okay. So okay, we did that one. Oh, and this is just, oh, sorry. This is I just added this, a very important quote. It's very heavy, so I'll probably read it once or twice. It is a child's activity level and active playtime that determine the ultimate brain development and extent of adult capabilities. So what we're seeing here is that it's playtime and education. Sorry, we're going the wrong way. That's determining how well they develop as adults. Active level of activity. So what we have to do is bring active development into our classrooms. Generally, we talk about motor learning in three. Okay, I apologize. Am I back, Karen?
Yes, yes, you're good.
Okay, okay. I apologize, everybody. Um, okay, so the cognitive movement, cognitive stage, very slow, inconsistent, inefficient. We really have to think about everything we're doing, like learning to ride a bike. We have to learn how to pedal and balance at the same time. And then the associative phase is when we're starting to become more accurate and consistent. But then that autonomous stage is where we don't have to think about it anymore. We no longer have to worry and think about walking. So I'll show you a video later of kids learning to walk, and it's really in that cognitive slash associative stage. And we forget that even walking was at one point a cognitive stage and associative stage. So we have to be aware that every form of movement goes through these stages. And again, this is just my little bit of neuroanatomy. This is the motor cortex, which is the big, darker, pinker section. And that's the primary area of motor. So it generates all those signals to flex your hamstring or extend your bicep. So this is kind of more primitive. It's those electric signals. If you stimulate it, it jerks a muscle. But the cerebellum, which is kind of at the base, it's rather small. It's kind of this light pink area. It's about a tenth of a human brain, but all the neurons, over half the neurons flow through that area. So the cerebellum is important in coordinating movements. It coordinates posture, balance, coordination, speech. But what's also important is that area also helps coordinate the learning. So all your learning pathways also have to come down through that area. Now we have, this is developmental coordination disorder. I just wanted to explain what this is so you can understand more the basis of what the cerebellum does. So developmental coordination disorder is just basically a disease of the cerebellum. Its diagnosis is if you have both fine and gross motor coordination deficits that impact a children's daily living. So it used to be called the clumsy child syndrome, but I guess that wasn't very PC. They've renamed it. And you'll see, again, not very PC term, but I explain them as kids kind of that are a hot mess. They bump into people, they don't understand the force of writing, they write hard, or if you ask them to toss something, they toss it over a garbage can or undershoot. They just can't coordinate all those different movements. And what's important to know is that it's a condition of the cerebellum and that developmental coordination disorder does not affect a child's intelligence. However, what you see with these children is that it's really hard for them to learn. They have learning disabilities often because it's that same pathway that's affected. So there was this research study done. It was done in England. So these test scores and GCSE, it doesn't mean much, but basically what it was saying is they studied kiddos with developmental coordination disorder, and what they found is they were on their standardized assessments, they definitely performed lower because again, we have an issue with the cerebellum. So learning to move and move to learn. Motor development can be seen as a process of learning a range of movement solutions to various life's challenges. I put a kind of a few of these kind of quotes in here because I just think they're so impactful. That motor development, it can be seen as a process of learning a range of movement solutions to challenges in life. Motor development to challenges in life. So you need to go through learning to move, to figure out, to gain these pathways to figure out how to do other things in life. So I'm hopefully going to be able to play this video. I might have to come back and forth out of my screen, but this is the one I was explaining where a child learning to move is really in those basic stages, the cognitive stages and the associative stages of learning to move. Okay, so as I was saying that these babies are really learning to move. They had to practice so many times, and you saw that one child trying to squat down and stand up, squat down and stand up, squat down. And he's like, "Whoa, now I'm by this." I think it was like a lanyard or something that he wanted, but he had to practice squatting down, picking up, and he's like, "Oh, if I squat, I'm closer." So the amount that he's learning in just those activities is it's very severe. It's wonderful. So this is another um, thing I want to talk about is crossing the midline.
Hey, Emily,
Uh,
before we go on, there
yeah,
was a question from
sure.
earlier.
Yeah.
At what ages does this typically get diagnosed and by whom?
Oh,
That
the
was before the
CDC.
video. So,
Okay, no problem. The developmental coordination disorder. Okay, so generally a parent or a educator or somebody kind of brings it up to your pediatrician. It is an ICD-9 code, so it does have a technical diagnostic criteria for it, and the pediatrician does have to diagnose that. Um, it doesn't really need to be diagnosed to be treated. So if you ever have concerns and you think you have a child that kind of might be that involved, I would go ahead and see if you have access to an OT or PT, or if you're in early intervention, to try to get somebody to maybe evaluate that child and get some services on there. And they don't need the diagnoses to get services, but it doesn't hurt. Thank you, Karen. Okay, back to this theory of crossing midline. Now, I think everybody's heard this term that, you have to learn to crawl to walk or to read. Now, that's not necessarily true, but to develop this idea of using both sides of the bodies together, again, helps learning. So the ability to take all this movement information and coordinate it with both sides of the body will help us develop learning and therefore develop reading. So, crossing midline is exactly what it says. It's the ability to move one hand, eye, foot, whatever, into the vicinity of the other side, just crossing the midline of your body. Um, the developmental evaluations when you're really young, they all assess this ability. And in the middle of your brain is this, again, last neuroanatomy, I promise, is a structure called the corpus callosum. Now it's in between those two hemispheres. And the corpus callosum will consist of like 200 million axons that coordinate and connect the two sides of the brain. And it coordinates not only motor, but sensory and cognitive and cerebellum, because we know that different sides of the brain control different things. So it's very important that everything on both sides can talk and go through the corpus callosum and then go down to the cerebellum. And the amount of fine tuning that happens in every movement is very drastic, well beyond any of my knowledge. So there was this whole program developed by this Dr. Paul Dennison called Brain Gym. And I'm going to again read another very powerful quote, but it's created a series of brain gym movements. So it's movements to directly target and stimulate the brain to help a child reach full academic potential. So again, we have movements and the ability to reach academic potential all in the same sentence. So it just goes to show how much these two pathways are interconnected and how much we have to encourage movement in these children. So the brain gym deals a lot with crossing midline. I think almost all activities in that program are crossing midline. Here, I'm just listing a few little things that you can do. We'll talk more about other activities you can do to cross midline, but very simple, very functional activities with our kiddos is even just popping bubbles on one side of their body and having them use the opposite hand to pop those bubbles. So blow bubbles on one side, use their hand to pop it on the other. Sand tables and sensory tables are great. You can scoop with one hand and then put a funnel or something else on the other side and have them cross midline and jump onto the other side. When kids have a hard time crossing midline, what you'll see is that they'll pick up the sand with their left hand. They'll put the shovel or whatever it is into their right hand and use their right hand to dump. They can't cross from one side to the other, they just switch hands. And then figure eights, we'll talk about a little more, but like tracks, cars, and trains. And if you can do it in a figure eight, lots of midline crossing there. Again, the figure eight, or also known as the infinity symbol. This is used extensively in that brain gym program. Um, but I use this in numerous ways. So I often put painter's tape, that blue tape, on the floor, really big, in an infinity symbol shape. You can do chalk when we can get outside, and then they can walk it. So a lot of times they'll just walk in a circle on one side or walk in a circle on the other. Or if they do cross midline, they won't cross and go down. They'll stay at the top. They can get really confused with this figure eight. Um, I do a lot of tracing of it. I think I have a picture on the next slide. Nope, I'll show you another picture later, but I'll often tape this to the wall and they can be like in half kneeling or tall kneeling, which is another activity we'll talk about, and trace this over and over. So the infinity symbol, if you can use it in your day, it really helps at crossing midline and not only just crossing midline, but going from top to bottom, bottom to top, and crossing midline. A few other practical suggestions in terms of crossing midline or cross laterals. This is one I use a lot. Now, when you're dealing with 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 year olds, um, what I find is trying to explain this verbally, they don't get. You really have to use demonstration for them to understand what you're asking. Because if you're saying right and left, nobody understands that. Cross your midline, these kids aren't processing all that verbiage. So showing them is really important. And this one is just take one elbow to the opposite knee, and then you switch the other elbow to the opposite knee. This is a great one to do in whole group. Um, some of the activities I'll share later are good for small group settings when you do centers or something, just because of the complexity. But these cross laterals I'll often do in a whole group, if I'm going into a classroom to see somebody. Sometimes I'll lead just a 3 minute, everybody stand up, let's do some cross laterals and kind of get ready for our day. And then this one, I'm going to give you some videos on these in a second, but leg kicks, so you just put one toe across and tap over the other foot. You're just tapping across your body. And then the other one is toe touches. I'll show videos of these where you take left hand touch right toe, right hand touch left toe. Let's see if this one works.
Ooh. Good job. Can you switch feet now? Put the other foot in the middle. Now switch feet. There you go. Nice, bud.
Okay, I'm sorry about the disjunction of all that. That's just the only way I know how to do this. Okay, I'm going to show you another video. Now that kiddo was using paper, colored paper. Some kiddos are understand it enough where they don't need those visuals, but some kiddos really need visuals. I'm going to show you a couple and you'll see what I'm talking about. We'll start down here. I think this is the one I'm referring to. Yeah. I apologize, there's no sound on this, but I'm just giving him cues. Take this hand, and you can see he's trying to imitate because I'm really shaking that left hand. I'm saying, cross your body, but he can't figure out how to cross his body. So then I'm going to give some tactile cues. Okay, this hand to this toe. You can do it. Still can't do it. This hand to this toe. And I'm going to try to assist him. One more time. There it is. Okay. But we don't want him to get too frustrated, obviously. It can be very frustrating. This is a child that does have a lot of learning disabilities. This is a couple years ago. I would love to see kind of where he is now. But see what I mean? The demonstration is key because he wouldn't process all that language. So then I think it's the same kiddo doing the similar activity as that one in the other video. Getting it. But all my cues are, okay, this foot onto the red. This foot on blue. It's the blue and the red really help. So there I was pointing, no, this leg to red, this leg to red. So you just simplify the activity where we can really work on the crossing the midline. This kid is the most endearing kid, truly love him, but he has a hard time with some things. Is this the last one? This is a friend who was picking it up. Again, it's a better view here so you can really see I'm exaggerating what we need to do. You can also see it was COVID days. We're all wearing our masks. But this kiddo was picking it up. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. And then here we are. The more we strengthen the pathways of movement, the more we strengthen the pathways of learning. Briefly, like I said, early learning and developmental standards. Okay, we know this huge document. We're all really familiar with it, or maybe not. But we know that it has 8 developmental domains. So 8 domains we're supposed to address in early learning. And one of those domains is physical health and development. I'm addressing not really 2, 3, 4, and 5 here. Those come later when you get older, pretty much, but I'm going to really address the movement skills. So, as a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, we deal with this goal 19 for the most part. So, it's really important that kids are able to demonstrate physical competency and control of large and small muscles so they can engage in their school environment, right? So, when a PT or an OT comes and does an assessment or works with a child, they really have to make sure it's going back to these specific goals, that they're learning to engage and play at this age. Again, same thing, demonstrate awareness and coordination of body movements. So they have to be able to move in space, use different equipment, and not bump into all their friends all the time. So I'm not going to go through that. Okay. So that's it on that document. Now, the normal motor development of a preschool age child. So, normal motor development, we can Google everything and everything's going to give you very different age ranges on when you should develop this or that or this or that. The ages and stages questionnaire is a questionnaire that those physicians use. So that's a questionnaire you get in your doctor's office. At an 18-month appointment, they're asking, can your child do this and this and this? And they do it for speech, sounds, talking, fine motor, all of it, social. And then the one I'm going to really refer to, though, is the Peabody Developmental Motor Scales. This is a standardized assessment that PTs and OTs use. And so the information I get is going to come from the information I'm going to share is coming from the developmental motor scales. So 3-year-olds, what can they do? They walk up the stairs unassisted using an alternating pattern. I think everybody thinks, oh, the PT is going to come in and teach how to do stairs. That's kind of everybody thinks PTs just work on stairs. They don't, but when you have motor development or motor delay, what you see is stairs are often affected. And not only that, that's an important skill to be able to access your environment, right? So we do work on stairs, as it's a fact, but we work on many other things. But at 3, they are already alternating their feet without hands. Now, down is a little bit of a more complex task. It seems less safe, but it's called an eccentric contraction to controlled lower. A controlled lowering or controlled elongation is eccentric, is a little more complicated. That is why that comes a little bit later. So this is kind of still like a step 2. They're jumping with 2 feet. Now, 2 feet is something I kind of really look at. Are you coordinating both sides together, or are you already jumping just with 1 foot? So they're starting to jump with 2 feet. They can jump from the bottom of a step. They can already jump forward 16 to 24 inches. Like I have a 4-year-old right now with Down syndrome, obviously, so she has a lot of tone and strength issues, but we're working on jumping forward 2 inches to 4 inches. So these 3-year-olds are already pretty high level. They can start balancing on 1 foot, which is a very important task to be able to do, up to 3 seconds. And they're starting to kick a ball with a little bit more maturity, kind of the alternating trunk rotation kind of thing. In terms of ball skills, they're throwing overhead with about 6 to 8 feet but we're not being real mature yet with the trunk rotation. They're catching with both arms extended and they're starting to not trap the ball to their chest. Now we're running with true flight. So what does that mean? That it looks a little more mature. One foot, both feet are off the floor at the same time. You're in the air, then the other one lands. Um, on and off a tricycle, and they're kind of pedaling a little bit. Ladders at the playground and swinging. So you should be able to see 3-year-olds access the playground equipment. By 4 years old, now we're getting our balance. We're walking a balance beam forward and backwards. We're jumping further. Now this is where the hopping on one foot comes in. So if you see that a 3-year-old's not hopping on one foot, it's fine. It's not developmental yet. They're galloping. We're standing on one foot longer. And now we can really steer and pedal that tricycle. Some kids can even steer and pedal a bike. 5-year-olds, we're hopping on one foot, we're switching, hopping on the other. So now we're getting coordination. We're skipping. Skipping's a big one for 5-year-olds. Again, not 3 and 4. 5-year-olds skip. Now they can do a forward roll. And this is where strength kind of starts coming in, and you'll see sit-ups or plank or something. This is where sit-ups come in. They don't come in till age 5. So when kids come to if they're lying on their back to sit up, they always use their hands until about age 5 when that strength really comes in. Now, in terms of ball play, we're starting to be able to get away from the big, like playground size ball or kickball to a tennis ball. And scooters. I use a lot of scooters in activities, and I'll talk about those later. So, fitness awareness, obviously, we all know the benefits of fitness. And children who don't have good movement skills don't have good coordination and not develop good fitness. We all know all these things that fitness provides to us. But I want to share this time mile. So I have a PE instructor I work with. He's probably been there now 20 plus years as a PE instructor. And when he started doing a PE, he always does a time mile. He does one in the fall and then one in the spring. And when he first started, all the kids' time miles in the fall were so much faster than the time miles in the spring. So, because children were outside running, playing, swimming, outside, don't come home till the lights come on kind of thing, right? They had all this activity in the summer, and we live in this climate, obviously, that is not conducive to having all that in the middle of the winter. So, therefore, the timed miles in the spring were lower. Now, what's really unfortunate is he's seeing the reverse. So the time miles in the spring, after being in PE throughout the year, are higher than the time miles in the fall, meaning our kids are not getting the activity over the summer they used to get. They're getting more activity in their 3-time-a-week gym class than they get all summer. So we all know where that's coming from, and I'm not here to soapbox about screens, but everything I'm talking about makes us aware that we need to add movement. So active children become active adults. Okay, briefly posture, because I get a lot of questions from early childhood on posture in the classroom. So because I have you all, we'll discuss this really quick. We all understand that posture is extremely important, not only just for muscle aches and pains, but it's important for all those distal extremities to work. And if a child has a hard time holding themselves up, they're going to have a hard time using their distal extremities. And if you're not standing and having proper posture, all those internal organs are not where they're aligned, where they're supposed to be. So posture is important for so many reasons. And like I said, children who are posturally unstable, they use so much energy trying to maintain that balance that they really can't focus on the task at hand. So if you see that a child is just lying on their desk all the time, they just can't hold themselves up posturally, we're going to have to help support them a little bit. And I'll show you how we do that in a minute. So ideally, and I understand we're preschool, so we are often always in a one size fits all classroom, right? Every chair is the same height and every table is the same height. So again, if we can make little adjustments to make that child a little more successful and posturally supported. Now, fortunately, because we're preschool, we don't always sit in a desk or always at a table. So it's nice that we move around. But when we are being asked to do activity or writing or fine motor or something, we need to make sure that our feet are on the floor. So you will have peanuts that don't have their feet on the floor. All you have to do is put something under their feet, a block, a thick foam, whatever. Bring the floor up to them so they can support their feet on the ground. If we can support our feet on the ground, then we can have our knees at 90, our hips at 90, our shoulders at 90. So obviously here our goal is the kiddo on the right. The kiddo on the left has that rounded spine. Their hips are rounded forward, and then they're reaching over, and their whole spine gets rounded. All that is coming from the hips. So if you take your fingers, and you can do it now, take your two middle fingers and place them on those bones right at the front of your hips, and you just rotate those two bones forward, create a little rounded, a little lumbar lordosis, the inverted curve on the spine, and all of a sudden your whole posture came so much better upright. Okay, and now what are we doing? We're paying attention more, we feel aligned, and we're ready to go. So if you ever can, please try to bring the floor up to a kiddo if possible, especially those kiddos that cannot maintain it. You'll have the squirrely kiddos that are always moving, but the kiddos that just can't maintain static posture. This is an example. These are examples of kiddos that cannot maintain an upright posture. So the little cutie pie on the right lying down is Down syndrome. Now, again, biologically, because of Down syndrome, her skeletal muscle system is just weak, and it's very hard for her to maintain this upright posture all day. This kiddo on the left is doing what we all see, this W sitting, and we're just hanging out on our ligaments. And I'm going to talk about that briefly. I get a lot of comments about the W sitting. So what is it? Why is it important? Is it a bad thing for everybody? No, it's not a bad thing for everybody. Kids are flexible, and although I could not assume this posture to save my life, kiddos can. They're flexible. The problem with this is, if this is the posture we pretty much only use, we're not using any core muscle. We're hanging out in a very wide base of support where our center of gravity is so low. And to reach for something on either side outside our base of support, we don't have to engage our core to prevent from falling, because this wide W sit helps us not fall. So we're not engaging all these postural muscles, which is not a good thing. And then the other problem is when you transition this to standing. Now, a lot of people don't quite see this at first, but W sitting actually leads to that in-toeing posture, because if you see that little dude on the right, his hips are rotated inward. They're really, really rotated inward. And then when you go to stand and those hips are rotated inward, your knees collapse in, your feet come out, and you in-toe, okay? So I'll get calls from people, this kid trips all the time, all the time. I don't know what to do. And I'll look, and their feet are turned so far in, and then I follow them to the classroom, and they are the most significant awful W sitter, and that's where it's coming from. All that inward rotation, no postural core strength, because they sit in this posture all day. So it's not a big deal if kids move in and out of this posture, but it is a big deal when it starts affecting function and when it starts affecting length of muscles. And I'll show you that in this picture. So this is a significant extreme, always W sitting. So when we try to long sit, so just put your legs out long, kind of in a V, this is where she collapsed to because her hamstrings are extremely tight. Her hip external rotator, she has no hip external rotation because they're always significantly inward. Now we're getting structural problems and we're only 4 years old. So now we're having a problem. So as an educator or anybody working with all these kiddos, let the kids move in and out of W sit. It's fine. But please, if there's somebody extreme, go ahead and make a call to somebody if you're able to do so. Oh, I have a feeling these didn't work. Let me try these. Hold on. This might just be, oh, good, it works. Okay. Again, I apologize. The sound's not working, but I'll talk you through it. Okay, so this little kiddo, extreme W, his core is really weak, so he has a really hard time even tall kneeling. Look, he gets off balance because the postural muscles have to work. Half kneeling is near impossible. He can't. We're working on, in this video, we are working on transitioning to stance through a half kneel. That's your normal way. 2 years old, 1.5 to 2 is when we start transitioning from floor to stance via half kneel. That's kind of another one of my red flags. If kids aren't able to transition from floor to stance via half kneel, you can see it's very challenging for him to do it, but we're working on it. Okay, then what's this one? Same kiddo. This is the other way. This is the way he prefers to stand up and down. And he'll sit, same way. Stands up like this. I mean, I feel like those knees are going to break. So this is when we get involved and try to strengthen and stretch appropriately. So that's my W sitting soapbox. Oh, there's the video, or there's the picture. Sorry about that. Let's go to this one. So what else can we do? What other positions? Obviously, crisscross applesauce is ideal. Extreme W sitters will have a very hard time with this because their hips cannot rotate outward like that. An alternative is this side sitting. They're still kind of in a W on one side, but it's better. Now, if you're trying to get a child to really break it, you might have to provide a back support. So you can put them against, maybe the bookshelf or something. Or I use what's called backjack chairs. There's these little material chairs that sit on the floor and they give the child a back support so they don't have to sit in crisscross or they don't have to sit in a W sit, anything to break up that W sit. Long sitting, again, kiddos that have the extreme W, their legs won't straighten like this. Their hamstrings are simply way too tight. So again, give them a back support. I use a ton of tall and half kneeling. These are core strengthening. They have to learn to balance in this. You're taking out their legs, so you're having to use just your core to balance and maintain upright. So I'll show you activities that we do a lot of tall and half kneeling. Here's some. Okay, so don't worry about this picture on the right. I probably should take it out. That's very therapeutic stuff. But on the left, you can do anything. All your activities can be performed in tall kneeling. So this is just like a beanbag kind of bench. You can use a little table, whatever you can use that's the proper height. And just any manipulatives they're doing, they can read stories, puzzles, anything you're doing, just have them do it in tall kneeling for a little bit. This little one, it takes a lot of tactile cues to gently maneuver his little tummy away from leaning forward to engage that core. And here again, I do a lot of activities in tall and half kneeling. Again, I just tape some paper to my door and we just draw or whatever we need to do. this video doesn't work, so I won't go into this video, but same thing, puzzle at the right height. This little kiddo has that very protruding abdomen, very weak core. I think for him, though, it was a little bit more intestinal kind of issues. But so that is my soapbox stuff. And now we're really going to get into all those crazy activities that we can do to bring it into the whole class and maybe small group kind of activities. So this is just ideas to have those movement breaks kind of thing, all class movement breaks. They're kind of activating, they're a little energizing. If you need to pep them up, a lot of times we don't need to pep them up, but this kind gets the energy out. So this YouTube video, it's like, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. You don't need to see the whole thing, but this is when I kind of do a little get up and move yourself break. So I will go ahead and just let the whole thing play. Again, I think it's like 3 minutes. So if you need to get up, stretch, go get a drink of water, do what you need to do. I am going to let this whole video play and then I'll be back.
I'ma be the baddest that you ever done.
The new Infiniti QX80 and QX60 Sport are dark chromed, stealthed out feet.
Healthy music for a child's heart, body, and mind. Shake your sillies out from the award-winning CD Kids Country Song and Dance by The Learning Station. We're gonna shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna clap, clap, clap our crazies out. Clap, clap, clap our crazies out. Clap, clap, clap our crazies out. And wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna yawn, yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Yawn, yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Shake, shake, shake our sillies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna clap, clap, clap our crazies out. Clap, clap, clap our crazies out. Clap, clap, clap our crazies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Jump, jump, jump our jiggles out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Jog, jog, jog our jitters out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Stretch, stretch, stretch our stretchies out. Wiggle our waggles away. We're gonna yawn, yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Yawn, yawn our yawnies out. Wiggle our waggles away. Wiggle our waggles away. You could get Shake Your Sillies Out on Kids Country Song and Dance in full season.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Go Noodle is something that truthfully I used to use a lot more than I do now with these kiddos. It's become a little advanced, very for older ages, but there's a few that I will sometimes use, and one of them is this guy, High Five Champ. He's got a few lessons. The kiddos can do these activities. Popsicle is kind of just fun dance moves that kids like. and Brainer Size with Mr. Catman, really weird dude with just a person with a cat head, like a just a big cat head. But he does those brain exercises. So he'll have you move one hand one way with the other hand going the other way. Some of them can be pretty high level for this age group, but I would suggest kind of checking it out. I want to go back to this other slide briefly because I forgot to mention. Um, all you educators are probably very familiar with Jack Hartman. I used to like to use Jack Hartman for this part, but he is very copyrighted, so I shouldn't be doing that. So anyway, if you haven't explored Jack Hartman, please do. And what I want to use him as an example of is you can incorporate any of your lesson plan you can incorporate movement into any of your lesson plans. And that's what Jack Hartman does. So he'll be doing letter sounds, but he'll have a movement with each sound. And then he'll be doing numbers and he'll have a movement with each number. So he's incorporating movement, the learning movement pathways with the same pathways of learning a letter sound or learning your numbers. So it's really actually quite genius. But all of these activities we're going to go through, you can incorporate any of your lesson plans and pick a movement to use during your lesson plan. So some jumping games we do. So this is sight word jumping, probably a little high for our kiddos, but you can do letter sounds. So letters, recognize the letter A, jump to the letter A. I use a lot of poly spots. You'll see them as we go on, those little rubber circles. And I'll be like, jump to red. So we're learning colors. Some of those poly spots are different shapes. Jump to the star. You can get really creative. Pinterest is really good. My therapy source, Google that one. I think it's in your references. Huge amount of resources and activities and ideas to incorporate anything. You can just be jumping till the music goes off. And then when you stop jumping, what letter are you on? What number are you on? Jumping jacks. I do a lot of jumping jacks. This is brain movements, right? This is coordinating. This is getting both sides working together. It's higher level, so you're not really going to see it in your 3-year-old so much. But jumping jacks for the older kids is very high, getting that brain involved. So again, with kids this age, you need to use demonstration. So you're going to have to do it with them. So I'll say jump, make an X, and we'll jump to the X. Jump, make an I or a pencil, and we'll jump together. And you break it down real slow at first. Jump X, jump I. Before you can take out that pause, you really have to teach those movements. These are the poly spots I'm talking about. You can don't touch the floor, jump across the room, jump from island to island, use colors. Frog jumps outside. I use frog jumps inside too, like get all the way to a squat and then jump up. You can have them we'll talk about different animals that we can be, but this is be a frog. So sometimes you'll have kiddos that have a hard time jumping. So this is just some ideas, like if you're seeing a kiddo not learning how to jump, the cue I have to give more than not is to bend your knees. And again, you demonstrate. Bend your knees, because then they learn they have to spring up. A lot of kids will try to jump when their knees are extended straight, so they can't do it. So again, demonstrate, exaggerate, bend your knees, bend your arms, get real low so we can all jump. And it does come eventually, usually, but use demonstration. Okay, and then we talk about hopscotch and hopping on one foot. Again, this is where more your 4 to 5-year-olds. Remember, 3-year-olds aren't really going to be hopping on one foot. I think everybody's seen these, like the letter tile puzzle things, whatever they are. These are awesome. And I do a lot of motor planning with these. So you can switch this around. 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. They're hopping A, B, C, 1 foot, 1 foot, 1 foot. And then they get to D, E, it's 2 feet. They jump to 2 feet. Now F, we got to go back to 1. G, we got to go to 1. Oh, HI, we're going to 2 feet. So I do a lot of motor planning with this kind of pattern to go from 1 to 2, 2 to 1. It can kind of get really confusing with the kiddos that have a hard time. Hopping around the room 1 foot. So this is something you can, if you're in a whole group, everybody stand on 1 foot, hop, hop, hop. Or, you're saying, girls with the pink, go line up. Girls with the pink, go hop on 1 foot to line up and get your backpack. So again, you can incorporate some of this movement into your daily routines. Tricycles and scooters. This is somewhat hard to do right now. If you have, I'll show you activities you can do in a small space, even if you have a short hallway or a short area in the back to be able to use more so the scooters. There are good ways that you can incorporate scooters into your class. Oh, sorry. Every year I say I'm going to take that silly thing off. Okay. So these are tricycle and scooters. These kiddos will really need the 3 wheels. Goodwill's good for these. These things are a dime a dozen. People get rid of them. Goodwill, garage sales. People get rid of these things left and right because their kids age out of them. So these kind of scooters are awesome. This is tricycle. Now in the picture on the right, I was very lucky to be able access to the gym where we could do all this. And I understand not everybody has access to a gym, but so they're, I think, matching letters. So the letters are on one side. They pick up a letter, ride their little bike, and match it to the fishbowl letter. Same thing with the scooter. Pick up a letter on one bike, scooter over, and match their letter. So again, you can use any of your lesson plan and just bring some movement into it. This is a way to do it with scooters and tricycles. Scooter boards are another way to do it. These are good when you have even less space. So you can see at the bottom, it's just a little classroom. It's the length of a table this kiddo is on his stomach doing manipulatives. And it's just manipulatives. So he has little blocks on one side and he's scootering over and just putting the blocks on the outline. On the top, same thing, we just have letters to the chicka chicka boom coconut tree. When you're sitting on a scooter board, always give the cue to sit on that little circle or else they'll go. It's no big deal if they fall off, but they often fall off. But you really want to try to do both forward and backward because a child might understand how to go backward, but they might not understand how to go forward. So give the cues to try both ways and then do try tummy to go here. Extension is something nobody gets anymore. As a baby, we always talk about tummy time, and the importance of tummy time to build up all those extensor muscles, but we don't do that after infancy, right? So it's something we should still do, especially in our day and age where we're always forward, we're always sitting, we're always over a screen. Don't forget to be on your stomach. Again, just if you need a little movement break, motor break, you can pull somebody if they're not getting it. Just scooter and a hopscotch. Balancing. We don't teach balancing much, and we probably should a little more. So there's 2 different types of balance, generally. Static balance, so the ability to maintain balance in a stationary posture, not moving. Dynamic balance is the ability to maintain posture when we're moving, like on a balance beam or a balance board. Static balance can also be with not just on both feet, but on 1 foot or a very narrow base of support where we glue our feet together or we put 1 foot in front of the other. So we have an even less base of support. They're in a tandem line, straight line. Or balancing on a giving surface like a Bosu ball or some foam. You're still balancing without moving. It's just we're giving you a little bit of a varied surface to balance on. So I love to use a balance board in the classroom. You can use, if you have a board, they have those orange rubber balance beams that are about, I don't know, about an inch off the ground. Or you can use painter's tape. I do a lot of painter's tape. If you have a board or the little rubber balance beam, it's better because then they feel themselves stepping off. You know, if you're on painter's tape and you step off, you're not going to self-correct because you can't feel the difference. But with balance activities, again, there's so many activities you can do on a balance board. So a lot of times I use a ton of puzzles, and if I put the puzzle on one side and I put the pieces on the other side, so they have to get a piece, walk across the balance beam, and put it into the puzzle. And again, any theme, you know, if you're doing a theme of pets, then you just use an animal puzzle. If you're doing a farm, use a farm puzzle. You can incorporate any lesson plan, movement into any lesson plan. If you're learning numbers and all you have is Post-its, just the numbers along the balance beam on a Post-it. Number one, walk and get number one. And then if you're really good, walk backwards to put it, I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. One more time. Maybe not. Okay. So we can put the numbers along the board or letters along the board, and you can tell the child, walk and find number 4, walk and find the letter 3. Or you can be really good and do 1-1 correspondence and pick up the number 2 and then walk 2 more feet. Okay, so you can take this to whatever level they're at and incorporate this. Balance activities in the classroom. Some classrooms have. This is one of the things we use a lot in early childhood in the programs I work with. I think they're officially called stepping stones. If you ever order something, you can look on like the Habilitations, that's a therapy website, but never buy from Habilitations because it's about 10 times more expensive. And then see if you can buy it elsewhere. But stepping stones are really good. You have to balance on these as you walk. You can put them in a straight line, vary the distance. These also, if you ever have toe walkers, toe walking is really hard to do on these. So I'll use these with toe walkers a lot because they kind of have to get their whole foot on it to be able to step and keep walking forward. You can play the ground is lava. And again, same thing. Puzzle pieces on one side or letters on one side, go place it, matching colors, letters, whatever you want to do to incorporate these stepping stones. In the classroom, I encourage a lot of these things kind of in a whole group. You know, you do your morning meeting or you do your circle time or whatever it is. When you all gather before you sit down, let's everybody practice standing on one foot. Or if everybody's getting squirrely during circle time, let's stand up and practice standing on one foot. And let's see if we can count to 10. You can also try to get kids to balance on their tiptoes. That's really challenging. Again, you can do that one foot in front of the other, tandem, heel to toe, or your feet glued together, or try doing this with your eyes closed. So you could do like a 5-minute almost, let's stand and have a balance break. So start with just standing without moving. Then add maybe close your eyes if your class isn't too silly for that. And then add, let's try to balance on our tiptoes, and then one foot, and then heel to toe. You can just do a whole little balance session when they're all just on the rug for circle time or something. This is getting really tricky, really therapeutic. We put her on a wedge, really challenged her, but not something you're going to be probably doing too much. Animal walking. So again, there's some really good strengthening, motor planning, and really good activities in these animal walks. I use these, mostly the bear and the crab more than anything. especially bear and crab. So if you're going to do any animals, do the bear and the crab. And that's what I have pictured right here. At the top, the bear, it's your hands and your feet with your bottom in the air, not crawling. And the bottom is the crab walking. Now, you will find that this crab walking is extremely hard in those extreme W sitters because their hips are so internally rotated, they're not activating their glutes or their core. So, crab walking is very hard. Bear walking's a great one. Getting a lot of input through the shoulders, a lot because we don't usually weight bear through our shoulders. You're getting a lot of input through our shoulders. And then you can be silly and incorporate any animal you want. Bunny hopping, turtle crawling, inchworm, penguin waddle I like. Penguin waddle is just kind of when you turn the feet out so you're externally rotating your entire leg and turning your feet out. Again, very challenging for our W sitters who like to toe in. So these are kind of just games you can play. Again, we can do it. I'm going to go back to this. You know, if you need to get your backpack, crab walk to go get your backpack, penguin waddle to get your backpack, bear walk to line up. Incorporate it into anything. If you have a little bit of a hallway and you have space during centers or something, again, puzzles, get a piece, go crab walk, bear walk. It's hard to put it in your hand, but a number, a letter, crab walk, bear walk over to do your matching. Yoga. I use a lot of yoga. Generally for the motor learning piece, the motor planning piece. So this is my favorite deck. There's tons of decks out there. But this is my favorite deck to use. I don't know why kids it's most easy to see. But it promotes thinking and memory, auditory processing. Um, I don't know how it expands imagination and creativity, maybe because you're going to be a cat and a cow or whatever. And then all the benefits of yoga in general, stretching, strengthening. There's a lot of stretching and strengthening involved in yoga. But I use it for the motor planning part of it. So if you need to quiet people down, I run a group in the high school actually that uses these cards. And we actually have to use a lot of the quieting down. So getting a lot of input. So we're sitting in the feet together, legs out, butterfly pose, and we're just calming and quieting and centering, and we just breathe. And you know, for these, kids can get silly, I understand that, but if you take your voice to a yoga voice, kids really respond to that. It's quite amazing. And you just use that calming, slower, quiet voice for these, and they really respond to that. Same with downward dog. It's kind of like that bear position. You're elongating the entire backs of the legs. Great stretch, great input through those upper bodies. And again, very hard for my W sitters because they can't stretch out their legs like that. It's very hard. You'll see them turn their feet in, their hamstrings, their knees bend. It's quite challenging. And then if you want to kind of get more power and focus and strength, these are good pictures for that. That L, the lotus, again, we don't work on the extensor side of our body, the back side of our body. So this is a really good one. Sensory walks. These are becoming more common and I love them. You can purchase one for $2,000 or you can kind of make your own. Like on the right, they have a lot of just tape, right? And then on the top, they're even tracing it on the wall. Use your finger to trace it. Make a big figure 8 with that one and trace it. Just painter's tape on the floor. You know what works well too is a Cricut with vinyl. And then you can change it up a little bit. So anybody who's a real good cricketer, you can make any shapes, make it real cute with simply a Cricut and some vinyl that will stick to the floor pretty well. So the other thing that's really important to not forget about is that eye-hand coordination, object control skills, object manipulation. So it's just ball skills. And it's not just catching, it's rolling, catching, throwing, kicking, rolling to a target, bouncing. Kids don't really understand bouncing. You have to bounce it into a bin or a tub, you have to figure out where to make it bounce so it goes, the trajectory works. So again, it's a lot of thinking and processing and learning and trial and error. Um, if you're in a gym or something, you can do a ball race where they roll the ball and you have to beat the ball. Okay, that we don't always have a lot of space for that, and these kids might get a little silly, but that is a great activity if you have the space and the time. Catching and throwing is really huge. So again, we're at the ages of 3 to 4, we're really going to use kind of a bigger ball. Like I love kickballs. Not kickballs, I apologize. What's that game where you throw it at everybody? Because they're nice and soft and squishy. Kickballs are a little bit rubbery yet. So nice, soft, squishy, larger ball. And then they can, that way they're not scared to play catch, to toss it back and forth. So, if you're really good, you can get a partner and have them do it, um, which is kind of high level, maybe for those older kiddos, you can do that. Dodgeball. Thank you for ever put that in the chat. I was blanking on that word. Okay, thank you. Dodgeball balls are great for this. Encourage them to learn to catch with their hands. This is also reciprocal turn taking, paying attention to your other partner. I use this huge with autism kiddos because to engage reciprocally is a challenge, right? So just peer engagement and to know when they're throwing it and we're throwing it. I think it's something every class should incorporate at some point. I know people don't like to use balloons, but you can even use balloons a little bit just because they're even softer and less intimidating. But kids tend to play with them differently. They're not going to just throw and catch a balloon. So dodgeball works, but that reciprocalness is so great. So this is like a homemade ski. So this is what I'm talking about when you're kind of learning STEM too. Just rolling up a ramp, rolling down a ramp. And they have to learn like trial and error. How much force is it going to take to get the ball in there? And what if I use different density balls, right? So this is good science, rolling and object manipulation and learning force, control, um, bouncing. Like I said, bouncing is huge. They bounce and catch. You can bounce off a wall and catch. Here you see kids using hula hoops. Maybe they're mini hula hoops, small circles. Again, a lot of times you need those visuals for kids to learn to understand what to do, right? So here we're learning to bounce a ball into the hoop so we know we can catch it. Again, balloons, yes or no on balloons. You can have balloons or not. Bean bags are huge. So bean bags, you can do strengthening with bean bags. You can do any kind of lesson plan with bean bags because you can find bean bags colors, letters, numbers. You can toss into bean bags. You can be on all fours or in plank like this one. Give me the H, find the H, take out the H. Over here, beanbag balance is huge. Put it on your foot and try to get it into the bucket. So if you have a center and you're working on colors or whatever, I want everybody to find the red beanbag and put it in the green bucket. You just gave a lot of different verbal cues and different instructions and to see if they can remember, okay, red into green. So you can really challenge these kiddos just with beanbags, but you're also challenging their motor here with balancing. Heavy work, sometimes kids just need weight, right? They just need to work. we'll take out the tug of war. Tug of war is really good heavy work, but we're probably not going to do that. Um, I do a lot of this push or pull a friend in a big tub. So like a big plastic tub or you store your Christmas decorations. And a friend literally sits in it and you push them across the room or you pull them across the room and you're really getting a lot of input and strength. Um, sometimes you can do it with the kiddos that need a little centering before they have to sit down or they need heavy work because they can't sit down, but you can do this with any kiddos for body awareness. Um, Weighted balls, I even got mine at Five Below. It's just a little I'd say at this age, 3 to 5 pound weight, 3 to 5 pound ball. Um, and again, I have to often with kiddos that won't engage their core and just have a hard time, just carry, oh, Mrs. So and so down the hall needs this weighted ball. She needs this. She's waiting for it. Will you go walk down the hall and give it to so and so? Just carrying it. You can put them in a big cart and have them push it somewhere if you need somebody to do some heavy work. This is one I put a bunch of blocks in there and she's just um, pulling it across the gym. And I did mention motor planning briefly when I was doing my yoga talk, but motor planning, and I do this um, with the motor postures, but motor planning is really for those kiddos who have a hard time planning. Sometimes you're a hot mess, the clumsy, awkward, uncoordinated, and they have a hard time learning that new skill, right? They can't throw to save their life, right? Everything's just very troublesome. The developmental coordination disorder, right? Um, they really stick to one way of doing things because they're scared of trying new things on the playground. So we really have to challenge those kiddos a little bit and do some motor planning with those. So here's some examples of motor planning. They're just trying to roll the ball back and forth across the line. Twister's fun. I really think 4 and 5 year olds can do Twister, right? They think it's kind of fun. How am I going to put my foot over here and still stay upright? Twister is a good game, an old school game that we could probably all take back out. Or you can just print off a sheet that says motor planning. So yoga poses are one way to do it, or just random poses like this. So motor planning is the ability to conceive, plan, and then carry out a non-skill act or a non-skill posture. So if you just show a kid a picture of, say, down dog, like in yoga, and they just don't understand how to get their body to look like that, that is an issue in motor planning. How do I make my body look like that? So again, in the beginning, they see the visual, but they might need demonstration. For some reason, it's very interesting. You can show this picture of a child doing it, and they can't figure it out. But if you do it, then they figure it out. So demonstration helps a lot. Or you can just do this. Let's make this posture. This is totally a new posture. This is not a yoga posture. I like the yoga poses, but sometimes they learn those poses, right? So then we have to challenge them with these very random things. This arm's going up, the left knee's going up, this arm's extended. I'm kicking my foot out to the side. So just random poses to figure out how to get themselves into. Obstacle courses should be in every early childhood vicinity, whether it's in the hallway. You can see there's not a ton of room, but we have enough to be able to put a few things out. So get creative, use whatever kind of equipment you have. You can use it to teach concepts. This picture that's sideways on the far right, I use that one, cones with sticks, and I say, okay, this one we're going over, the next one we're going under, and through the hoop we're going through. So we can teach concepts of over, under, through. On the left, you can see just a slide, crawl through the tunnel. And this is an example of that orange balance beam I was talking about. You can buy these orange balance beams. They're maybe an inch high. They're nice and stable. They're rubbery. They don't slip or slide. I use those a lot. And then here you just have walk on these steps. And then I use the poly spots a lot to jump, and then go put the ball in the hoop. So this can be simply a motor break. Or again, you can do it with a puzzle. You have a lesson plan on shapes and you have a shape puzzle. So take the triangle and go through the obstacle course and put it on the other side. I don't know who knows about this wheel of names. You can use this in anything, but then it's wheelofnames.com, and you can change the names here. Some people put they do it in the classroom. Who's going to come up and answer this question? They have all the kids in the classroom's names on it. Or you can do crab walk, bear walk, jumping jacks, and just kind of have a movement break. Put it on your smart board or whatever you have. And they get so excited. What is it going to be? And then they'll follow it. They really will try to follow it because it's exciting. A wheel of names. Fun with puzzles again. I use puzzles for so many lesson plans. I do them a lot on the stairs to get kids to practice stairs. I don't think you want your whole class doing that, but if you have a kiddo that needs to just get out of the hallway and do a puzzle and they need to go up and down, they need the movement, put the pieces along the stairs. You can hide the pieces through your classroom. Again, anytime you're going from one side to the other, an obstacle course, a balance beam, do it with puzzles. The floor is level. We've done a few. I've talked about that. Paper plate skating. I love this one. What a great winter activity, right? We're in the midst of winter. Everything's ice. So paper plate skating is a great motor planning strengthening thing. All you need is paper plates. I wish I had a good picture of it to show you. You put it under their feet and they just slide. And they have to walk across the room, keeping their paper plates under them like they're skates. Very easy. Everybody has paper plates. Very low cost kind of fun game. I use it a lot. Kid connection. This is interesting, but I love it. Again, this can be in a whole group when you're kind of in the circle time-ish, and then before you transition or something, and you just say you stand with a partner and you say, okay, now with your partner, I want you to touch your toe to their toe. So they're figuring out how to get my toe to touch your toe, maybe to balance because you lifted yours up. And I'm learning my body parts and I'm learning spatial awareness, or stand back to back. So they're having to think. That's a good one I like. So we're coming to the end here, a few minutes early. So equipment, you can see I don't use crazy lots of equipment, but this is kind of your easy toolbox. If you can have some of these things in your toolbox, it is kind of helpful to engage in and to incorporate all this stuff I'm talking about. Those jumping circles or poly spots, those rubbery ones. The stepping stones are nice. Bubbles are always easy. Balls, mostly dodge balls. Hula hoops are good. Jump in, jump out, bounce in. If you can get your hand on a tricycle, great. Those scooters are great, especially the little ones on the ground, the sitting in to the ones that you sit on. Balance beam or painter's tape, we've gone a lot through that. Weighted balls, we talked a little bit about that. The Inspired Treehouse resources, that's this website at the top. They have wonderful examples and wonderful resources for you to use. And that's pretty much all I have. Do I see any more questions?